A Ukrainian court has sentenced a local man to 15 years in prison for high treason after he published commentary opposing the war with Russia. 27-year-old Bogdan Siratyuk, a socialist activist, was convicted by a court in Ukraine's southern Nikolaev region. His writings included condemnation of the brutal tactics of Kiev's conscription officers, as well as criticism of Zelensky, who has maintained an iron grip on the country under martial law, despite his presidential term having long expired. Siratyuk's supporters have launched a petition for his release. It's already gathered more than 5,000 signatures. And we're now joined live by Mr. Siratyuk's colleague, Johannes Stern, editor-in-chief of the German-language edition of the World Socialist website. Welcome to the program, sir. So, what can you tell us about Mr. Siratyuk's case? We know he was arrested over a year ago, with authorities claiming he was a Russian agent. What do we know about the court proceedings?
Thanks for having me, first of all. He was actually arrested by the Ukrainian Secret Service on April 25, 2024. So over more than 2 years, he's now imprisoned in Ukraine. And he was sentenced, as you said, on August 10th, 2026 by a district court in Permovaisk, where he lives, for 15 years in prison. And the court also ordered the confiscation of his property and electronic devices, extraordinarily also the destruction of socialist books, leaflets, programmatic documents he owns, and which the Secret Service seized from him. And the essential point is really there is no criminal case against Bogdan. He has not shown, which is the claim, which is of course a lie, that he's a spy, a Russian spy, that he was passing military secrets to Russia, that he's acting as a Russian agent. That's not the case. That was not. There was no evidence produced. He is a socialist internationalist. He has opposed the Russian intervention. He opposes, of course, the NATO war, the imperialist war against Russia. And he has written about that. He has put forward a socialist perspective, has called for the unity of Ukrainian and Russian workers against the war, and that's his crime. So it's basically it's a thought crime. It's a frame-up. It's a political case, and Bogdan's health was already bad when he was imprisoned. He was denied medical treatment, and a 15 years prison sentence in Ukraine, given the horrific conditions in Ukrainian prisons, of course, is really threatening his life. So that's the situation. I can, of course, say more about the so-called criminal views in his articles, but that's briefly what the frame-up is. He's convicted for socialist thoughts, for an internationalist position opposing the war.
And your website says that the court's decision will be immediately appealed. What are you hoping for in this case, and do you think there could be a positive outcome?
Yes, his lawyers are appealing the case. There's actually also the case is already taken by the European Court for Human Rights. So there is a legal procedure which we are of course supporting, but we have no illusions in the courts, given the character of the Ukrainian regime and the sentence which was just handed down on Bogdan. It was a fascist court. I mean, the fact that Ukraine is, of course, rehabilitating the Nazi collaborators, that's what is Bogdan's crime. He has written extensively about the role of Bandera, the SS Division Galicia, the OUN, other Nazi collaborators in the Second World War, and has exposed the crimes of these forces against Jewish people, against the Ukrainian people, and of course as participants in the war of annihilation waged by Hitler against the Soviet Union, which killed at least 27 million people. So that's the forces, the so-called national heroes, which are now revived in Ukraine. And given the fact that this is a government policy pursued by the Zelensky regime, and the courts are acting clearly on behalf of this government. We are having no illusions that Bogdan can be freed on the basis of this appeal. Of course, we support it legally, as I said, but the main issue is to build a powerful international defense campaign. That's why we have launched this petition you mentioned, which can be accessed on the World Socialist website. There's a campaign site for Bogdan. We have already received a number of important statements by artists, by historians, intellectuals. So we're making a very broad appeal, and really everyone who is a defender of democratic rights should support Bogdan and should write protest letters to the court. That's also a call we are making, and should sign the petition and should build and support the campaign.
And shortly after Bogdan's arrest, your website was banned in Ukraine. How has his arrest affected the socialist community in Ukraine, do you think, and its ability to express political views?
Yes, that's correct. It was banned shortly after the arrest, and it's of course only one ban. There's, basically all left parties are now banned in Ukraine. I think there are 20,000 criminal cases which have been opened under the claim of treason. So there's a very broad political prosecution. Everyone who is opposing the rehabilitation of Nazi forces, who is opposing the NATO war against Russia, is seen as a criminal. And so it's a very broad strategy and by the regime, and Bogdan is one case of many. That's why it's even more important to support this campaign. It's of course centered when we campaign for our comrade on Bogdan, but we're really exposing in the campaign the whole character of the NATO war, the whole fraud that NATO is defending democracy. Here, I must say, I'm speaking from Berlin. There's really no coverage on this case because it would, of course, explode the whole official propaganda narrative that the German government, the European Union, the NATO powers are waging a war for democracy and freedom. We, of course, oppose, as Bogdan did, the Russian invasion, but this was clearly provoked by NATO, and it's a long-standing strategy to encircle Russia militarily. And I must make a comment, again, speaking from Berlin, on really the goals of the German ruling class. They tried 2 times in the 20th century to conquer Russia and wage war for plunder in the East. And that's the 3rd time. That's what we are exposing, and that's what also Bogdan brought forward in his writings, and that's why he's prosecuted.
All right, and finally, what's your final message to all our viewers who would want to support Bogdan Siratyuk in his illegal struggle against the Kiev regime? And briefly, if you may, please.
Yes, I want to, thanks for asking, very directly appeal to everyone listening. Bogdan's freedom depends on building the broadest possible international campaign. Please protest his conviction, demand that the verdict be overturned and that he be released immediately. I already indicated that we have a campaign site, wsws.org/freebogdan. There you can sign the petition. And again, Bogdan has committed no crime. He's a socialist, he's an opponent of war, who has been sentenced to 15 years imprisonment for political convictions. And his life is in danger. And we appeal to everyone who defends democratic rights, help us to win his freedom. Thank you.
All right, Johann Stern, editor-in-chief of the German language edition of the World Socialist website. Thank you so much for finding the time and speaking to us today.
Thank you.